Record.
Alrighty. Okay, so today I will be interviewing Troy Granger.
Yay!
Yay! Okay, so Troy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
About myself. Well, I'm getting kind of the end. If we're talking in the coaching world, I'm assuming that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm getting towards the end of my career. I'm in my mid to later 50s now. I started coaching in 1999, so you and everybody that I'm coaching right now was not even born at that point in time. Um, Kind of gone through a lot of different places and different levels of coaching. Ended up at Ridgeview, and I've been coaching there the last 6 years for with coaching the girls, and I've been coaching girls for it's going on 12 years now. So it's been pretty fun, pretty exciting.
Wow. So you've definitely made a name for yourself in the wrestling community, especially the women's wrestling community, and you've been quite a big voice. So, I have a couple questions that I'm going to ask you, and just feel free to shoot off your dome what you got, and we'll just get started. Okay,
Perfect.
so we're going to be mainly discussing the Iowa Girls State Wrestling Tournament. It was a big part of my career in wrestling, and it's obviously still a big part of your wrestling experience.
Yep.
So, in your time with women's wrestling, what is your experience with the Iowa Girls State Tournament over the years?
Well, if we want to go backwards and where it was when I first started, the first girls state tournament, not, even within the high school I went to was the female elite wrestling in Norwalk, Iowa. And
Mhm.
so that was, I couldn't even tell you what year that was. That was about 11 years ago.
Wow.
Approximately 50 to 70 girls were wrestling in that tournament, and that was youth through high school.
Mhm.
Maybe five weight classes in the high school, and it was more of a weigh in and see what you get put into. That was that way for a number of years, and then as uh, man, I can't remember the year. It'd be 6 years ago. Maybe it was seven. I cannot think of exactly when this Ogden and Independence, Iowa, hosted the very first two girls tournaments where girls in high school and could compete for their team against just girls only. And that year, the IWCOA, which is the Iowa Wrestling Coaches Association, said, "Hey, can we go ahead?" They asked the Boys Association, "Can we go ahead and run a girls' state tournament?" And they said, "Yes, you can, but you're going to have to attach it to a JV event." They had insurance reasons and for the officials to be there, so it was attached to a JV event. It was in Waverly, Iowa. Of course, it had a lot of interest. I think over 100 girls, 150 probably signed up, but we had one of the worst snowstorms in like recent history that I remember that night. So I wasn't even in a school vehicle. I was in my dad's F-250 because we were going to go no matter what. I picked up Keegan, who was a wrestler of mine, but happened to be injured at the time. But we drove to Waverly at like 4 o'clock in the morning. Ended up being right around 90 girls ended up wrestling that day. And that was the very first time girls could say they were state champions at the high school level for their school. And it was pretty special. It was really special. Honestly, it was a very cool thing to see those girls compete. Kind of a side note on that tournament, since I wasn't coaching Keegan, there was a lot of schools that weren't able to send their coaches or wouldn't send their coaches. We won't.
Mhm.
I'll be nice and say they couldn't send their coaches. So I actually coached for three different schools that weekend. Each school made me do background checks, and as I was an assistant coach at three different schools that weekend, I told Erin that one the first time I met her, and she said, "You couldn't have done that." And I said, "Well, it happened." So that was really cool. The next year it was still in Waverly. It grew quite a bit. They were doing this, man, it was probably five mats in the main gym and 2 to 3 mats in their smaller gym. So it had grown a lot. Were we there 3 years? I think we were there just 2 years. And then the IWCOA decided to go to Coralville.
Mhm.
And those tournaments were amazing. I don't know if you were involved in the first one or not.
I was not.
Okay, so they ended up you didn't qualify at that point in time, so
Mhm.
everybody got to go. I can't remember the numbers. The brackets sizes were huge, 32 plus size brackets, and
Mhm.
you're doing that in basically a 2 day period of time. So I mean, they were huge, huge to try to get through. Just really cool. The next year, they added a silver division, so the
Mhm.
tournament was probably over 1,000 girls that went through there, both the JV and varsity at the same time. That was the year that they sanctioned, and that
Mhm.
was, I mean, the emotion involved in sanctioning. It was an incredible. I mean, we kind of knew it was coming, but even though when Gene Berger said, "Hey, we've sanctioned girls wrestling," it still kind of brings tears to my eyes because it's something I worked for quite a while. And a
Mhm.
lot of people worked for that. It's not just me. There's a lot of people that worked very hard to get that done. So they had hired Aaron that year, brought Aaron Gerlich in, and she did an amazing job, and she's awesome. Uh, but then the following year, it was really cool to see the very first sanctioned girls wrestling tournament, and it's standalone.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's another state that can. I don't know if another state has a standalone tournament like ours. A lot of them piggyback off of their boys tournament.
Mhm.
If like Nebraska goes the days prior to the boys coming in. Some places have it, right alongside. They have an extra couple of mats, but Iowa does it right. I mean, there's nothing else going on. The whole arena is pink. It's celebrating Iowa girls wrestling in a really good way. That first year we had that, it was still one class, and it was tough because you're with little schools or with big schools, little schools, and the super regional got you there, so the top four qualified, and I believe we had 32 person brackets those at that. Then we split into the two classes, which I think is I think really important to, especially if you're from smaller schools. And I'm in the
Mhm.
larger classes because I co-op, but I see the difference in what schools are able to offer. If you go, you just drive through Des Moines, Ankeny, Waukeeth, schools like that, and then you go to a school like maybe out in Western Iowa, the difference in just what the money is in those areas, the
Yeah.
tax bases and stuff. So there's a reason for having two classes. But now, the last 2 years, it's been the top. Well, actually, it's 4 years now. We did 2 years of the no class, I believe, then 2 years of classes now. So we've gone through a full cycle. So there is now actually girls who have wrestled for their full career
Mhm.
as the sports sanction. Hopefully, I didn't ramble too much there.
Nope, you're all good. It was actually really interesting to see kind of the building blocks of how girls wrestling has evolved throughout the state, going from a tournament that basically wasn't really even a tournament. It was just
Yeah,
little girls through high schoolers and then straight to just a sanctioned high school sport. And also touching on the fact that uh, Iowa has basically made it their own thing. I've met a couple girls from different states out here that have wrestled for Montana, wrestled for Washington, wrestled for California, wrestled for Colorado. And I described the Iowa State tournament and talked to them about it. And they get to see this whole new perspective. I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's such a big culture for Iowa, especially because we're such a big wrestling state, but for the girls of Iowa and how it's put together, how it's held, how it's organized, and they just think it's the coolest thing ever because like you said, a lot of their wrestling is just piggyback off the boys and they don't have like their own thing. It's not even if they are sanctioned, it's basically just another section of the boys that no one really watches, which I think you're totally right with Iowa doing it right, Iowa keeping it just for the girls and like highlighting it. So thank you for answering that one. That was a
yeah.
very
No,
good.
if you look and explore the Iowa Girls Athletic Union, I don't know if you've ever done this or not.
Mhm.
Uh, it it started because of girls basketball, and
Mhm.
people I can't remember the year, so I can go back and look at the story, but they said that girls should not. Many people believe that basketball is too strenuous of a sport for girls to compete in, and so
Mhm.
it was actually the smaller schools in Iowa broke away from the high school athletic association and started their own, and so it's kind of crazy how that mirrors a little bit how a lot of people didn't really think girls should wrestle, and how that mirrored. But the difference in a lot of these states is we're the only state in the union that has two separate governing bodies for high school sports, and the
Yeah.
girls union. If I wasn't involved with the girls union until this happened, but wow, they do their stuff different. They put it when they're talking about doing it for the Iowa girl, they mean that.
Yeah. And they've done a great job with it, I think. Okay, ready for question number two?
Sure.
Okay. So, as your time as a coach, how have you seen women's wrestling change over the years? You said you've been in this for a long time. How have you seen
Yes.
it over the years change for from a coaching perspective?
From a coaching perspective, my coaching's changed so much coaching girls because, um, well, I guess when I started coaching girls, it was one.
Mhm.
And she happened to walk into my club practice. Um, I didn't really pay that much attention to her because it really wasn't. It was whatever, but she kept coming back, and then asked me to help. Then once I started helping her more, I started finding small pockets of people across the state that were helping girls, and so we started working together, building teams like Jason Shepard, who I coach with still to this day, building teams because we were not at the same school districts at those times. We started building teams regionally to try to compete at just tournaments and try to build up the sport. So coaching has gone from coaching a small group of people into coaching large groups of people, and like this school district has some of the first practices I maybe had 4 or 5 girls at, and now I have 25, 30 girls in just my high school practice, so that's just the scale is so much bigger. But I think I learned some different things with coaching girls and to the made me a better coach. And it's so I can contribute coaching girls to just the way they are. I think they're girls are so much different to coach than boys. So anybody that says I coach them the same is doing something wrong. Um, First of all, girls pick up things like 300 times faster than any boy I've ever coached wrestling. And part of that is, and I'm going to do some stereotyping here, but on the good side of the stereotype, girls tend to be perfectionists and they want to do things right. So they really pay attention, they ask questions, they go through these things. The problem that I found with that, and I'm trying to make them not so great of perfectionists, is when they don't get something right, then it's I can't do this. I suck. I this. I that. It's the complete. There's not a lot of middle ground there. So I'm trying to get people to understand that wrestling's not a perfectionist sport.
Mhm.
You're also competing against somebody else that's trying to do the opposite of what you're doing. So things aren't picture perfect. You can't just set up a play. You got to do what that other person's doing. So first, that's probably the first thing that I learned is while they're so good at picking things up, but then I also had to learn I have to pick them up after they're maybe can't do this move after the first 30 seconds. And
Mhm.
it's sometimes that's an irrational thought to me, but in their heads that's perfectly fine, and so I've learned to adjust there. There's a different emotion to girl sports. Boys can be indifferent about a lot of things. You wouldn't know. It probably affects them the same. I'm going to tell you, I took losses not very well, but outwardly maybe didn't show it. But girls will internalize things. And again, stereotyping, girls tend to internalize things. So sometimes loss, they feel like they're maybe not, I don't know, maybe not as important. They put a lot of their hearts on their sleeve. They
Mhm.
do things in the point where if I don't win this, my people aren't going to think as good of me. But again, another thought that I try to work with people on and let them know every time one of the first things I talk to people about, we're going to lose a lot of matches, win or lose. I really don't care. I want to see improvement, but the sun's going to come up tomorrow. Mom and dad
Mhm.
are still going to love you. I still think you're an awesome person. So, those
Mhm.
are things that I try to convey. So the perfectionist, the emotion involved in the sport, and that's brought out a lot of things. So I'm from a German background, and Germans are very strong in my, so you don't hear a lot of, there's not a lot of emotion, a lot of hugging, but boy, that just being around these girls, I mean I've cried more in the last few years of girls wrestling than I ever cried in my lifetime, because a win is so important. First wins, I tears. Last match of a career, a senior night, those things. So the emotion of the girls' sport changed the way I coach too. So I I coached with that emotion, and it's made it way more enjoyable to be able to um, tell someone, and I'll get more into the kind of coaching philosophy later, but just be able to let them know that it's okay to have emotions and things like that. The girls' sport, their bodies are built different.
Mhm.
So what boys can do, girls can't necessarily do the same exact thing, but they can do things differently. And so
Mhm.
learning the differences in that sport, males are more upper body dominant, to where, it took a while for me to understand why it's so hard for girls to do certain things. Well, they don't have, they're putting their weakest part against another female's strongest part, their hips and their legs and stuff. So once we learn how to use our bodies differently, and the flexibility is different, and there's a lot of things involved in coaching girls that it's a learning experience, and it's a fun learning experience. Um, I don't know. It's and just the joy around the sport. I've seen so many, and officials will tell you this too. They've never seen, they haven't been around the thing where someone loses and they congratulate each other and they hug, and they truly, their matches are vicious. I mean, I will tell you, those some of those matches are really, really tough, but there's a mutual respect. And I don't know if that's because it's still kind of in the new stages and we're still growing, and that, yeah, hey, we're congratulating each other, but there's a lot of sportsmanship. There's a lot of, just a lot of admiration amongst athletes and stuff. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but you
Yeah.
know, old guys ramble.
It's okay. I find it really interesting, especially learning from a coach's perspective. I've learned from a lot of different coaches over the years.
Yep.
My dad being one of them. And when he came into the wrestling room to start being an assistant coach for the girls' team, he talked about how different it is coaching girls than it is guys. Because he was an assistant coach for guys' teams before.
Hmm.
And he himself being a wrestler and being in the wrestling room from high school through college and afterwards, it was very different for him seeing how girls respond to things, how girls have questions about things, how I remember him telling me a story of I think it was in college, how his coach Jim Miller was like, "Okay, go punch the wall." And then all the guys went and punched the wall. And he's
Yeah.
like, "I don't know why we did it, but we did it because we were told to." Where he's like, "If I told girls to do that, they'd be like, 'But why are we doing that?'"
Yes,
And
exactly.
it's very much like asking the question of why, how can I do it this way? And I remember my coach, Ali Jabrock, she would, after a tournament, she would sit us down and say, okay, what questions do we have? Or she'd go, this is what I saw that we were doing wrong. And it was basically a giant Q&A of what questions do you have to work on? What did you guys see? And that was really helpful for not only me, but my team, and seeing um, how other people thought of things, and other people had inputs on things of, I do it this way, I saw this person do it that way, why is there difference? And I think that's so important to use, and I feel like a bunch of coaches across the state have also seen this. Another example of a male coach coming into a female's room is we had an assistant coach, Dan Knipp. He worked for Columbus for a really long time coaching the boys. His son Mason was, I believe, a two-time state champ. Could be wrong.
There's someone
Um,
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he came in to help us with our upper weights, and he just described how different the women's room was, and how much almost he's like almost how much more fun we had with it,
Hmm.
and it wasn't as nitty gritty. This is one way of life. This is all we're doing. I mean, we did work hard, but we still had fun with it, and there was that team connection of how we work together. And it was such a different environment, he said, from coaching the boys to coaching the girls. And he said he enjoyed it a lot because of that connection, of how different it is, and how we have 1,000 different questions when we come into the room, and just wanting those answered. So I think it's really interesting seeing different coaching perspectives over the years. Sorry, my light just turned
When
off.
when you said that, I do have to, and I don't know why I didn't even think about this. One of the biggest things that I found the difference in coaching, and I've heard a lot of coaches say, "Yep, you hit that right on the head." When you coach boys, you have to earn their respect. They want to
Mhm.
know what's your accolades. They want you to, like especially when I first started coaching, I always felt like I had to just beat everybody in the room so they would respect
Mhm.
me and listen to what I have to say. With girls, I feel like you have to gain their trust, and they have to know that you're there to teach them wrestling, first of all, but you're there on a maybe a different level that they have to know that they're safe. You've created a safe space for them. You've
Mhm.
created a space where they can make mistakes and it's okay. So that trust factor is something that I think I work very hard to gain,
Mhm.
and that's something I find that's really important in coaching girls is they have to know that although I'm a older male, they can trust that they're in a safe space to be
Mhm.
around, especially in a combat sport where there's not is not as much anymore. But when I, especially first started coaching Keegan, I was her practice partner most of the time,
Mhm.
so she had to trust that I was there for the right reasons. And I've always
Mhm.
felt like I have had to not had to do that, but I've always felt like I do a really good job of letting the girls know that, hey, you're in a safe spot and it's
Mhm.
okay and stuff. We'll for sure have to talk about your coach. I'm writing notes as I go, but your coach is an amazing young woman. But we'll talk about her later.
Yes. Okay, ready for the next one?
Let's go.
Okay. So, what have you seen in the differences, growths, acceptance in male and women's wrestling over the years? I'm specifically looking for like the acceptance of it because it was it wasn't really that big of a thing like 8 years ago. So,
Yeah, yeah. No, you are 100% correct. So, I when I you just full disclosure, you sent me some questions ahead of time so I could prepare my mind for this also. But so I did not just take my perspective. I actually reached out and talked to a few people. So to me, I see, wow, it's amazing. I go back and I talked to Paige Storm, who's coaching at the BV, and she was part of that. Maybe not the very first people, but she was when Fargo was brand new to girls being able to wrestle. She was one of the first people to wrestle in what was the USGWA, which was the girls wrestling, the very first girls wrestling organization that went and had national tournaments. She wrestled with some of the Olympians that gotten to know. She was at tournaments with Adeline Gray and things like that. So she has gone through, and a lot of girls that were in that time will tell you, people felt like it was a novelty and all that. They praised them for doing well. Oh, you made it through a whole period. That's so great. But then when they started winning matches, that's when people started, when they're beating boys, that now all of a sudden they're being called names and said just very derogatory things about them as they improved in the sport. And so I saw a little bit of that because when I started coaching girls, there was it was starting to get a little bit more traction, and there was tournaments with girls. Like the very first tournament I coached that was at the Hawkeye Carver Hawkeye Arena, and so I
mhm.
was really cool to be able to coach on the floor of Carver Hawkeye and stuff, and probably 100 girls at that tournament, national size tournament. So it was probably more accepted at that point, but still, there were still comments, especially varsity matches. Sometimes they got very heated. Other coaches, when before sanctioning, I had heard other coaches, as some of my athletes were wrestling, you can beat her. She's just a girl. And, I
Mhm.
look back at some of the very first athletes I had were some of the, at the time were some of the best girls in the state of Iowa.
Mhm.
And we beat a lot of boys. I had 5 girls on my varsity team my first year as a head coach, and I had 5 girls
Mhm.
wrestling varsity and winning duels for us. I went to a school that's not necessarily known that much for wrestling, but we had won like 10 duels that year with over a third of the team were female. So yeah, did I hear
Mhm.
some stuff? Yep, sure did. Those things. So, but as we sanctioned and it became girls and girls, then you hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I've always supported it, but I always thought it just should be girls wrestling girls." And I don't disagree with that either. I think there's definitely the differences, and I've seen a lot of injuries. I don't think that they shouldn't have because of any gender reason. I think it should have been more just the physical reason because I've seen those injuries that have ended careers and that stuff. But I see it as accepting, and I maybe I'm in my own little bubble where, Nadine was, of course, one of the first female officials I seen, but now I see a lot of them, and so I try to get to know them. I respect officials no matter what, but the female officials, I really like seeing that. The more female coaches we have, I feel like everybody's accepting, but then I go back and I talk to those coaches. And
Mhm.
Alana Vederick, who is a college All-American for Midland University, she was one of those first girls I met. She's now coaching at Norwalk, and I talked to her, and she's the head coach. Her husband happens to be the assistant, and she will say that officials will go past her to her husband and ask the question. I've talked to your coach, Allie, who's probably, in my opinion, one of the best coaches in the state of Iowa, and she will say that the same thing. They will go past her to talk to your dad.
Mhm.
And, because she knows the rules, Alana knows the rules. Alana actually officiated from the time she was 16 on. So she's
Mhm.
been on both sides of this and still has people questioning whether she really is a coach or if she's just,
Mhm.
in that role as a, just because you're a girl, that's why you have this role. But
Mhm.
I think it's starting to change. And here's something that Alana and I talked about, and she said, you know, and I think it's her husband that gave her this perspective. When you were coming up wrestling, you were carving a path for these. What do we have? 3,600 girls in the state of Iowa wrestling at the high school level.
Mhm.
You were carving a path for them, and now you have to do the same thing for the coaches. And I think like Alana and Allie are great representatives of what it is and should be. So in my world, in my bubble, everybody loves women's wrestling. Everybody, all these, I respect all these female coaches that are coming in, and I promote having that, all the time through, like through our AAU, we're going to have probably, I haven't counted, but over 30 coaches coaching this next weekend that are
Mhm.
female coaches. We have 60 Iowa or 30 Iowa teams, and I have at least one female coach on every team. So that's
Mhm.
probably closer to 45. So I've always promoted that and the officiating, but not everybody sees the world through my lens either. So um, I hope it's getting better, and I hope, maybe by the time you're coaching, it's just a completely accepted thing.
Mhm.
Hopefully that answered that.
Yeah, I found it really helpful having female coaches. I was very lucky to have Allie as my coach, and it's just seeing how girls respond better to female coaches.
Hmm.
I've seen it in different rooms, coming out here. I've seen it of how even if it's your first time in the room, if you're a female authority figure talking to younger girls about wrestling, they're gonna respond different. They're gonna see
Yep.
it differently. I helped work with TWC, which is Tiger Wrestling Club, when I was back home, and it was amazing how the girls responded to the older wrestling girls, and
Hmm.
to Allie, and I helped coach a Twin Rivers team, and I helped with uh, the AAU state tournament for the girls, and just seeing how they responded to me as a coach in comparison to the male coaches was just so interesting, so different to see. There was just a deeper connection, I would say, even if they've been working with male coaches for a long time. I mean, I was only in the room probably a year, and yet they were hugging me after matches. They were coming up and talking to me, and it was just this big thing, and I thought it was really interesting to see how differently they responded to it. And it's always just been something that I think has been that needs to grow, having more women active
Yep.
in the room of wrestling. We actually have a big game out here, which was really interesting for me to discover that there's a big game wrestling club out here.
Uh-huh.
And I asked if I could come into the room and see what's kind of happening. And I came in and I helped work with a handful of girls, maybe 7 of them. And it was just interesting to see how when I told them to do something or how different ways to do something, or just like if you move your body this way it'll work, or just showing them a different perspective, especially from someone who was coming from outside the room and coming from a female perspective. I was the only female authority figure, I would say, working with the girls when I went there, and just how they listened, and it was just different. I mean, there was still that respect, like you said, and that safety with the male coaches, but it's just that different connection with the female male coaches that I thought was really interesting. And seeing it more coming to life has been such a big thing, I think. And with women's college wrestling growing and it spreading throughout the United States of being more accepted as a sport, then I think we're going to have a bright future for women's wrestling. And then, kind of on the other end of things, is I'm a part of the Montana State University club wrestling team.
Oh, very cool.
Yep. And getting a chance to be able to see what that has been like for me, because stepping into that room, um, I'm wrestling, instead of wrestling women, I'm wrestling men now, which has been quite a big change because my wrestling partner, he's a 120, and that's kind of what I've had to learn the difference of, is kind of almost stepping back to what my the people who paved the path before
Yeah.
me did.
Yeah.
I mean, the older women of wrestling who are wrestling in college, those who are now coaching, that's what their life was like. And now I get to see that. And I'm trying to now be more of an activist for getting more women into the club room. We have a handful that kind of sprinkle in and out, but I want more of a steady presence. And
Hmm.
that's what I'm going to be working towards next year, hopefully. So,
Oh, that's super exciting. That's really neat. And yeah, it is cool that you're going to go back and kind of almost see that difference in how you had it, and well, this is how it used to be.
yeah.
While you were talking about that, the term that I'm not, I obviously didn't coin this, but representation matters. I'd say this multiple times in interviews that I've had. I say it all the time. And I tell my girls this. I probably have told the Cedar Falls girls this. Um, Not very many of you want to grow up to be a fat old guy with a beard that's bald. Very few of you want that. There might be one or two, but not everybody. So having coaches like Allie Joe and how that representation matters. It's important to see when you're looking to do something to have somebody that looks like you
Mhm.
doing that. And we hear that in all different aspects of life and all different things, but it's a representation is such an important thing. That's why people that are trailblazers, such as like a Nadine, it's so important for girls to see, I can do that because she did that when it was a
Mhm.
lot harder to do that. She went through
Yeah.
all of those things where, and I'm going to tell you to this day, and I won't tell you which official, but there was an official that was maybe starting to get blackballed in the state of Iowa because of the accolades that female official was starting to receive, and the
Mhm.
guys didn't like to hear that. So thankfully, we have good leadership above, and those things happen. But so those things are still happening within the sport. It's definitely a male dominated sport, and sometimes we got to change minds and stuff. But yeah, representation matters. It's super important. That's so cool that you're in that club. I have a
Yeah.
little connection with Montana, not Montana State. Where's Montana State at? Are
It's in
you
Bozeman.
Bozeman? Okay, so I
Mhm.
do have some of the people through AAU. Montana's also an AAU state like Iowa is,
Mhm.
and so we see the growth there through their national team. Most of
Mhm.
that's out in Sydney, which is way east, which is
Mhm.
almost like North Dakota. It's more flat and stuff. You're kind of more in the mountainous area, aren't you?
Yep.
So yeah, so I do see quite a few of the Montana girls throughout the year.
Mhm.
Twin Rivers this next weekend
Mhm.
and stuff. Maybe we should see if we can't get you connected with the national team somehow. But Uh,
Okay. What have you learned in coaching that has been most important to you?
Most important to me, I think I
Mhm,
learned that winning's not that important.
mhm,
Um, I think starting off as a young coach, it's all about winning and it's all about, this, where now, um, older perspective. It's about getting through hard situations. It's about preparing people. I use this statistic a lot. So I know college paper, you'll like statistics like this, and I'm going to be very generous because the state of Iowa, we have a lot of colleges. 5% of the girls wrestling right now in high school will wrestle in college. And again, that's probably closer to 3.5 to 4%. Within the first 2 years of wrestling, whether that's injury, whether I wasn't really, maybe I really didn't know I wanted to be a college wrestler, whether uh, people just leave college anyway. Sometimes college isn't for people. Half of that will no longer be competing in the sport of wrestling. So if I'm again being generous, 5% to 2.5%, 1% of that 2.5% will go on to wrestle a match at the senior level. That's a tiny number.
yeah.
So is my job as a high school coach to prepare kids to be a college wrestler? Absolutely not, because I'm maybe one or I've had a few girls go to college, and actually to tell you the truth, out of every girl that's gone to college, none of them are wrestling any longer because either
Mhm,
the injuries took them out of the sport, or it wasn't for them, or college wasn't for. No, I take that back. I have one left that's still wrestling, but she came off a whole season of injury, so she doesn't have very many matches.
mhm,
So I'm looking at all the girls that I've coached over the year. Maybe 4 to 5 have started college wrestling. One of those is left. I have a feeling that maybe next year I'll have another one that goes on. That
mhm,
maybe just the preparation I know I see she's taking, she might do well. She might stay out for 4 years.
mhm,
But you never know those things. So what I've learned is my job is to make sure that I'm preparing somebody to something bad happens, that they're able to. You can be upset when something bad happens, but how to take the steps to come back after that tough loss. How do we come back and step back on the mat? Those are tough things to do, especially
mhm,
at a state tournament. You lose in the semifinals. Are you going to be that slide out of the tournament, or are you going to be that person that comes back and gets third or comes back and competes? Sometimes it's not about getting the place, it's about just going out and competing. So that's
mhm,
something that I've really learned. I've learned that connection is way more important. Um, One of the things that we talk about in our room that's super, it's my stock speech, but it's become my stock speech because it's such an important thing to say. We talk about family. Almost every wrestling team, almost every sports team talks about family, but everybody's perspective with family is not the same. Some people's families quite honestly suck, and why would I want to be part of another thing that sucks, right? So when I talk about family, I define that, and I say, and I again, coaches, I don't think there's anything new and real. I think everybody has borrowed from other coaches and from the past their experience and stuff. But I break family down, and family is forget about me, I love you. And then
mhm,
as a 50-some-year-old guy coaching 16, 17-year-old girls, I define what love is right away because I want them to understand for a couple different reasons. First of all, I'll define it. What I say when we talk about love in this room, I talk about that I am going to give of myself and teach you everything I can without, I don't need anything back from you.
mhm,
But as a team, if each and every one of you gives of each and every one of us, we can truly, I mean, we can be something special. And if we're all helping each other and we don't expect anything back, that's truly what love is. And I go on because I'm a dad, because I'm a girl dad, I'm a girl grandpa.
mhm,
I also want those girls to know that that's truly what love is, and
mhm,
that this boy that's being a complete jerk to you and expecting things of you, that's not our definition of love. They need
mhm,
to be willing to give of you, and you are, of course, I believe this wholeheartedly that you are the princess, and they probably should be doing everything for you. We have rules in our room that I talk about dating, and these are jokes, so nobody, I don't want to get canceled on this, but first of all, we don't date redheads, so that's a rule. But we don't we do not date JV, so that's two things that we talk about. But no, I want the girls to know that it's important that giving of yourself is such an important thing. And then also knowing that if truly someone loves you, they're going to be giving of you, and you should want to give back. So that's how I talk about that in our room. And I think that's important, that just to know that we're all here to help and find one, come together as a team. And I think that works better with female athletes, just because I think that they're less selfish. I think guys are tend to be very selfish within sports, and girls have a tendency to be able to help more people. Again, my perspective.
Yeah,
So
I think that's a great lesson, especially to pass on to other coaches and whoever's listening, and kind of get an inside perspective of what you learned over all your years of coaching and how you put it into your program. So I think that was a very good point that you put out, and I think it's going to be very helpful for other people. So,
good. Thank you.
okay, so now we're going to be talking about a little article.
All right.
In 2022, an article written in Flow Wrestling by Andy Hamilton and the one and only Kyle Klingman stated, Iowans have a love affair with wrestling, but building a tradition took time. How do you think this quote reflects women's wrestling over time and how it's taken place over the years?
Well, I can tell you even from Aaron's perspective and from the girls' union perspective, because I've been in those meetings. Wrestling people want things right now. And we want this and we want that and we want it. And so we're always pushing. They say that the meeting that the girls union has every year, that's the longest meeting that accomplishes the smallest amount of stuff, because wrestlers, we will argue and battle for everything. And that's just, it's true. I've been in those meetings and we've argued over stupid things for hours. And it's kind of funny, but they're 100% right. I remember people talking about sanctioning when we had 100 girls in the state of Iowa that were wrestling total, or less than that, maybe even in the high school. And we have to sanction now, we're ready. And it was always, and I think there was some wisdom behind the girls' union and that we didn't see at the time. It was always, we want sanctioning now. They were like, we're not ready. We want to make sure when we do this right. We want to make sure things are in place. And so, from those early stages of, well, we have these tournaments with 70 girls at, and we call it a state tournament. And I'll even tell you how small that was. The first girl I coached at one of these state tournaments, she won her bracket because she was the only girl in the bracket, but then wrestled the next bracket up. So, that's how small it was. And there was three people in the next bracket up. So, to think that we were ready to sanction then is almost crazy. When we hit like 600 people in the state of Iowa, we got to sanction now. Look at all these girls wrestling. And I put the perspective out. Well, that's less. How many people did you have in your class at Cedar Falls?
500.
There you go. That's one 3A class schools enrollment, and you want to sanction it throughout the state. So I think, we always are pushing and wanting, and then the girls' union having some wisdom saw that, well, there's a path for this, like the IWCOA. Once there was teams that said, "Hey, we're going to have this state tournament. It is a legitimate state tournament through the schools." All of a sudden, these teams started popping up. Denver, for one, didn't have a team, but within that time, it was like a month and a half's time, they started a girls' team. They got some sponsorship that purchased singlets, or might have been two pieces at the time, purchased uniforms for them. So all these little teams popped up just because we said we have a legitimate state tournament, and then the tournament started growing around that, supporting a girls division. Then the growth really happened. And so that last tournament before, there was probably 1,500 or better girls wrestling in the state of Iowa. There was a path there. And so finding that path is super important. We do that to this day. People want, right now we're 16, two qualifiers from regionals. Every coach in the state is arguing we need to have 24 to be like the guys. There's argument pushback. I can't say that I don't want three because it's heartbreaking for me to have those third placers that have worked so hard that haven't got there. Uh, but I see how the value in highlight I wasn't even happy about just highlighting the finals matches this year in the girls tournament. You know, the Friday night used to be fifth and sixth, third and fourth,
Mhm.
first and second. I was like, this is fantastic. We're highlighting all these matches. And then they switched it to one, and I was kind of upset until it happened. And I was like,
Mhm.
that was really cool just to highlight the finals because
Mhm.
that's why we're here, right? To crown a state
Yeah.
champion. So I think wrestling community, we want everything and we want it now. We want huge things. We want to move out of the fantastic venue that we're in and go to a larger venue where I think personally, I think it would be a mistake because now you've wrestled in the venue that we're in, the
Mhm.
noise and the chaos and it's in
Mhm.
the back room where the true fun is in that back room anyway, where you're meeting, talking, it's joking and stuff. But the venue that we're at right now is amazing, and they've changed some things around to make it better until we grow a little bit more. I think it's the
Mhm.
place to be. You go to a Wells Fargo or a Casey Center, which it is now, where it's 3 to 4 times that size, and you
Mhm.
put this 5,000 people in a 20,000 person arena, it doesn't seem as much. It's not that. So again, wrestling people, we want everything right now,
Mhm.
but there's a growth. And it's good that we have people in the leadership roles that maybe they're a little on the other side. They're hold back, hold back, hold back, but it all
Mhm.
works out. Yeah, I've seen great growth. I've seen great things happen. So it's fun to see it, and yeah, I think that you're right. What was said there, the love affair is there, and but yeah, we have to taper things down. And one of the things that I know that I learned from the girls' union, whether I practice it or not, is they're kind of I don't really care what you feel. Give me hard data that supports your
Mhm.
your idea. And so that's helped me kind of look back. And then also me running some of the helping to run. I don't run, but helping run some of the largest tournaments in the country. Our
Mhm.
girls AAU state tournament last 2 years has hit over 1,600 girls,
Mhm.
and that's a huge tournament. And then Twin Rivers, which like you said, you've coached at, is over 100 all girls teams.
Mhm.
Huge growth, but there's things that also we have to do to manage that growth and stuff. So
Mhm.
I may have rambled and got way off of your question point, but I don't, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's it.
Yep. And I think you talking on those AAU and Twin Rivers, I have to say, those were my favorite tournaments to go to when I was still an active wrestler. They were also fun to go to when I was coaching.
Yeah,
And to see, like you were talking about, the atmosphere and being a wrestler and wrestling at the state tournament and having your team up in the crowd as you are on that mat and you just hear them screaming and yelling, and it's honestly a totally different experience. And I think you're right with the idea of, if you're moving 5,000 people to a 20,000 person stadium, then you're not going to have that
yeah.
connection, that feel, that closeness. One of my favorite pictures was when junior year I was wrestling for a third place match. Allison Schwab, she captured a photo of my team up in the stands, and they were all packed together. They were all cheering, and it was like, it just looked like such a great time. Like, even though
Oh
I
yeah.
wasn't up there with them, I was down on the mat, but like up together, there was that community and that closeness. And around, you could see all the other teams cheering for their girls that were also down on the mats at the time. And I think that was really cool. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
People,
it'll interesting to see where they go.
yeah, girls of your age and those that are in there now, and even Allie Joe, your dad probably has talked about Vets Auditorium before to you. Has he ever talked about Vets? And if he hasn't, you need to ask him about the experience at Vets, because that was prior to Wells Fargo and the state tournament. It was kind of the same environment. You were right on top of the mats, And I don't know how there wasn't more fights and how there wasn't things happening, but the crowd just moved as this match finished. The fans from this team would move off and the new ones would come in, and you had to almost fight your way onto the mat when you were going through the crowd because it was such a crazy environment. And that's the environment I like. I hate going and watching the state tournament for the boys because I feel like I'm watching it way back here,
Yeah.
and stuff. So yeah, I love environment means a lot. Like you said, Twin Rivers is so much fun because the mat there's all these people crowded on the mat, and it's just a fun environment to be in. Just a cool things, and dual tournaments are really cool too.
Yep.
That's duels are way more fun than individual. So
Oh yeah, and that'll be something we'll probably talk about is how this year we get the state duels for the girls.
yes, yeah. Do you want to talk about that now?
No, we
Or do you want to go different question? You're
we
in
we we
charge.
got we got to finish the list of questions. I
All
have a
right.
few more for you here, and then we'll kind of get going. So what advice do you give coaches when it comes to women's wrestling and the state tournament? So coaching at the state tournament.
So I think the most important thing I learned was athletes will feed off of your emotions.
Mhm,
So when you get really uptight and you're nervous about this match, that like yeah, they can feel that and they can feed off of you. So it happened to me. I saw my athletes freeze up when I was coaching those first couple of years. It was just IWCA tournaments, but I learned that I might be nervous, really nervous on the inside, but I have to show that, hey, I'm confident. Everything is fine. I'll go back to I'm going to go back to the last IWCOA. Was it I was it the year we sang? I think it was the year we sanctioned. Izzy Deeds is one of the girls that came through mine, and she's a fantastic wrestler, probably one of my best that I've ever coached. She was in the state finals, and she had just won probably the toughest match of the tournament was in the semifinals, and she went through a lot of emotions prior to that match. And I got her just to believe in herself just by I I'm going to use a naughty word if that's okay.
mhm. You're good.
Her college age. So she said to me in this before this first match, the semifinals, she goes, "You got to tell me how and why I'm going to win this match." And I said, "Well, that's easy because you're Izzy fucking Deeds." And she's like, "Yeah, you're right." And then we repeated this. She wins this match, very close match against an outstanding wrestler. Then for the finals, I've never seen this before, where you've been in that back area getting ready,
Mhm,
or the tunnel area, and the TVs are there, and you're watching when your next match is. There was two chairs, just two folding chairs sitting there, and she was so relaxed. She goes, "You just want to sit down and talk about stuff?" And we this is like two matches out from her match, and we just sat and talked about wrestling and the
mhm,
year. And I was like, she's so calm and stuff. So if I can remain calm and I can be that calm, strong presence and not not freaking out about stuff and like, oh my God, you got to do this, do this. If I give
mhm,
them too much to think about, and that they're going to get nervous, and I want them to be just flowing at that point in time.
mhm.
It's, or there's no more coaching to be done once you're in a state finals match or a state place winning match or even any match, a regional match. Coaching's done.
Mhm.
That's if they're not prepared, then that's on you as a coach. Prepare them for that. Prepare them for the moment, and then just go enjoy watching the moment. So
Yeah, and banking off of that, how do you keep calm as a coach?
I am not calm. I am not calm at all. I just know how again, I came from that good German no emotion stock, so I can be completely nervous and fake it. I'm good at faking. So
Mhm,
I am so nervous when someone's wrestling, and I think I have. I'm not anxiety bound like maybe some other coaches that you and I know, but I get anxious. I think scenarios through. We all do. We all think, worst case scenario, how's this going to go? What do we got to do here? But yeah, I try to put on that. I try to just put on that acting, that I'm
mhm,
not nervous and that I'm confident in you, and whatever happens, happens. I take those losses probably as hard as any
mhm.
other person. but I do it where they don't see me taking that loss hard, So how's there? It's not easy. It's
Mhm.
definitely not, like your dad is. I've coached with two dads, right? And I've been in really big matches, and I've had to hold these dads back because sometimes dads have to, they have to remember their. It's hard to
Mhm.
remember your dad when you're in the corner of a big match, and that you're
Yep.
your coach. You have to be coach and not dad. There was times that like Jason Shepard, he's like, you're gonna have to go talk to Tatum because I can't do it right now. I just
Mhm.
can't and stuff. And typically that was, when he was, if she did something and maybe he wasn't real happy about, I would have to handle that
Yeah.
and stuff. So yeah. And then I've been on the with Thomas Brown when Destiny, I've had to grab his leg because I'm like, you get kicked out, I get kicked out, that type of stuff.
Yep.
So Dad, I don't know how I would do it because the emotion I have around just athletes that I'm connected through just through the sport, and we become very close friends,
Mhm.
but I'm not their dad. I couldn't even imagine coaching my daughter in a state finals match. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I would probably have to let the assistants coach. I would have to be back. I don't think I could do it because I just thinking about it right now. I'm nervous about it. And my daughters, they did not wrestle. One of them was a manager, wrestling manager. This is before it was sanctioned, and I never really pushed it. But they swam, and I would get nervous with their swimming events and stuff. So
Mhm.
that's I couldn't imagine trying to be dad coach. But no, that's to answer your question. Um, I I don't know how I don't know if it looks like I'm not nervous and calm, I've done my job because I'm scared to death for each and every kid that's wrestling.
Mhm. Yeah. You're talking about like dad coaches. That is very true of having a very nervous parent being your
Yep.
coach. Um, one thing that's like an ongoing joke because my dad still coaches for the Cedar Falls
Yep.
wrestling team, and my old teammates know that Greg's gonna be drinking his water bottle. He has a
Mhm.
water bottle that he carries around. He will go through like four of those things in a tournament. Like they'll be gone like
It's
that
just his
because
it's his
yeah,
nervous
because he
tick,
gets
isn't it?
nervous. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna drink some water. And yeah, it's so funny. You'll see him coaching and he'll have his water bottle with him, and you're like, okay, how many water bottles have you drank today, Greg? Because
It's
he'll get
it,
nervous and he gets so nervous. He would get nervous before my matches. He gets nervous for other people's matches. And my dad and I, we would talk about my matches beforehand. And even in college, still, he keeps up with who I'm wrestling, what I'm doing. And we'll talk about my matches afterwards, who I wrestled. And he'll just follow along with anything. And there he would print out like the brackets and he's like, okay, this is this person and this is this person and you beat this person, and he'd kind of just go through it, but there was definitely the anxiety and
yeah.
you could tell.
Well, and your dad is a really smart guy. Like, I mean, he's just a smart individual. And when I talk to him, sometimes I feel like, well, I'm a kindergartner here, and he's just a smart guy. But it's probably that's how he copes with that stress is he's got
Mhm,
to have it. He's got to be analytical and stuff. Where
mhm,
I don't even know who's wrestling when. I have assistant coaches to tell me where I need to be. Right. I am. You've probably seen me at meets. I'm kind of a social person. I'm talking to everybody. I'm getting, I will talk to other other coaches, other athletes, other officials.
mhm,
So they have to point me in the direction because if I take that role of I got to know where everything, if I take that role on, I will be a wreck.
mhm,
I go talk to people mostly just to be calm and to enjoy my day. And sometimes in like the cases of like your coach, sometimes I feel like we become very good friends. I mean, super, super good friends. I keep telling her that I know unofficially, I know on her wedding invites and or not the wedding on the thing, I'm not going to be listed as the maid of honor, but we all know who really is the maid of honor here. And
I
so,
know.
sometimes I feel like with Allie Joe or Alana, sometimes my experience, I need to help them through some things too at,
Mhm,
at, at the state tournament or other
mhm,
places. I may be coaching the coach sometimes, and that's a role that maybe it's not welcomed all the time, but I've had plenty of talks with some coaches at the state tournament,
mhm.
letting them know it's okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. And I think that's another big thing of having, um, not to sound rude, but older coaches in the
Yep.
room. Um, I think Allie definitely learned that coming from people like my dad and Jim Witt and Dan Knibb and Dave Morgan of their experience with wrestling. Because,
Hmm.
I mean, they were done with college wrestling before she was even born.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
they already finished their careers and they had been coaching for a long time, and they saw so much more happen and so much coaching from the boys' side of things that they could help her, but also she puts them in their place of, okay, well, I know women
Yeah.
and
Well,
this is how they learn. This is what happens. This is how I'm going to do it. And they listen to her because they know
oh.
that she's right. She knows what she's
Hmm.
doing, and she just has those older coaches for, I'd say, her backup of,
Yep.
we have this experience, let's weave it in with yours. So,
Yeah. Most of a, a lot of the coaches that are coaching girls, especially in the smaller schools, it might have been that coach, myself, Sage, or older, that were just about ready to stop coaching. But they're
mhm,
like, hey, we really need a girls coach. Would you do this? And then I talked to them at tournaments and stuff, and they're like, this is the best thing I ever did. I'm so happy I did that. Officials, the same way. There's officials that were going to retire, but they stayed on because we're in a official shortage, and
mhm,
so they stayed on. They're like, man, I'm glad I did. I really enjoy officiating for the girls. It's just the there's a different feel to it. But yeah, I'm in awe when I like going to Florida this year. I'm taking Rachel Waters, and if you don't know Rachel, and actually it's Rachel Hart now because she got married.
mhm,
She wrestled in Final X to go to the Olympics. She was one match. She won. She was 1-1 in that, and was on her way to the Olympics. It's amazing. Atlanta Vederick is going down with what's Atlanta Warren now, the head coach at Norwalk. She's a college All-American. Allie
mhm,
Joe is the very first state champion for girls at the IWCOA for the
mhm,
state of Iowa, and one of she's already won an honor. She's been coach of the year. That's
mhm,
that's a huge, huge honor, something that very, very few coaches ever get, and
mhm,
she's recognized. I'm taking her, Sam Moore, who's a college All-American. I'm trying to, I know I'm missing people, but I mean, just the level of women's coaches that I'm around, I'm in awe, and I learned so much. I mean, I've taken a lot of the Cedar Falls warm up, and I use it for us now because I was like, how do you do these things? And I mean, I'm complete respect for all of these women, and they do it way better than I ever did. I mean, I was average at best wrestler. I wrestled in college, but I was, just an average college wrestler. I wasn't anything spectacular. And so I learn from everybody, and I would rather learn from somebody like an Ally Joe or Alana that are doing this and have done it at a higher level than I probably did, and just have a different perspective. So yeah, it's I don't even know what the question is, but but, but yeah, they're amazing. They're
mhm,
if you take 2 seconds to look at the coaches around you, and you're like, wow, they're fantastic, and they
mhm.
they know that they. I think I know where I'm going. Again, old guys ramble, right? Um, that their knowledge is so high, but they do need to temper that with a little bit of it's okay. You know, the
Yeah,
sun's coming up. They need to know the sun's coming up tomorrow too.
yeah.
I know
It's
Allie had
that
a
old
rough.
man wisdom.
Yeah, I know Allie had a rough state tournament this year, and she was pretty
Mhm,
upset with herself, and I was like, no, it's really going to be okay. I wish I had the horrible tournament you had. I would be the greatest tournament I've ever had is this worst tournament you've ever had. So
mhm,
perspective matters. So
mhm. All righty, we're down to the last kind of few questions. So, what does the Iowa Girls State Tournament mean to you?
oh, uh, it means a lot of years of work. Um, it's important. It really is. And not because it just highlighting the best 16 at each weight in each class, but it's just something. I couldn't even have dreamed of what it was, but it means a lot. It
Mhm,
really truly means a lot just to be part of that and stuff. So yeah, and yeah, it's rewarding, I guess.
mhm. And is there or what change would you like to see in it?
Of course, I'd like to see more kids in that tournament,
Mhm,
but that would be really the only thing. I like. There's so much great about that tournament. I love the environment. I mean,
mhm,
check that off. I was not a pink person prior to probably hanging out with the girls' union. I have pink shoes now. I have pink ties. I have, I'll wear pink. Actually, I just bought another pair of pink shoes to wear for next year because I usually wear like Air Force Ones or
mhm,
Dunks, but that's pretty rough on old people's knees for a whole tournament, especially a 2-day tournament. So I have some pink and black because that's the union's color, pink and black. Nike, are they Air Max? I can't remember which one they are. I think it's one of the really nice running shoes, so
mhm,
I'm all ready for that. I'm all about the pink. They make that arena all pinked out. The pink lines, they draw the lines in pink. In the finals matches, it has the girls' logo
mhm,
in the center. The back room is probably one of the best parts about that tournament. And you move a different location, and you may lose an environment like that because that's where a lot of networking and a lot of friendships get made in that back room
mhm,
that people don't get to see that. Um, Man, I don't. The only thing I can think of is making it bigger, is having those third placers be able to wrestle in it. But then you know maybe getting third at a regional is gonna take you two different directions. It's either gonna motivate you to get to make it the next year, or you're gonna maybe fall off. I don't,
mhm,
and stuff. So maybe third isn't a bad thing. That I guess that's a coaching thing too. That failure isn't final for sure.
mhm,
And I think in our society, a lot of times we think failure's a bad thing when failure actually is very, very, very important.
mhm.
Can't go on without failure. So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know if I answered that one or not.
You're good. Okay. And then last one. What is your favorite memory you have from the Iowa Girls State Tournament?
There's a lot of really good things. I've been in 3 state finals with athletes. We've won 2 of those state finals. So, that would be first. A lot of times you'd always think, well, you got to lean towards that because that's what we're there for, is to win a state championship.
Mhm,
Amazing things to do that. And this goes back to just being an old guy and enjoying. I remember talking to Allie. It was the very first one, the girls' union one, and I remember in the back room, we were. It was it your dad? No, it was her dad. Allie and me were the last 3 in the back room walking away.
mhm,
And I'm gonna probably embarrass Allie, but she's like, I was so nervous I peed my pants a little.
Oh,
And
that's just Allie in general. She has to bring
yeah,
a change of pants.
yeah. So, just that to me, that's one of those memories that stick out in the whole thing. But it boiled down to just having a conversation in the back room. The
Mhm,
relationships. I ask this question in all my podcasts. And not all of them because it's a newer question that I ask, but I say when you're old and gray like me, and you're sitting on your porch and you're yelling at kids to get off your lawn, and you look back on wrestling, what are you going to remember? And I can't think of one girl that hasn't said the relationships. So that's
mhm.
kind of where I'm at too.
Yeah. It's very much the culture and just it doesn't matter win or loss. It's who you met, who you talked to, that experience, and kind of kind of just going about it and just being there. I've talked to some of my old teammates like, Briar and Lauren, and I called them during the state tournament, and I just told them, "Just enjoy it." it doesn't, I don't care if you win or you lose. I don't care if you go 0-2 barbecue. I want you to enjoy the time with your teammates
Yep.
because there'd be nothing that I wouldn't give to have one more season with them, one more tournament because those were the best times. I don't care how much weight I had to cut. I don't care about what how terrible my bracket was. It was the community, the bus ride, the weigh-ins, the tournament itself, riding back, getting food, and it I just told them you got to enjoy it. It's your last tournament as a member of the Cedar Falls wrestling team. You just got to enjoy it. I want you to take in every memory, every hug, every cheer, every tear that you cry, just like I want you to remember all of it. And it was so important that I wanted to get that point across of it doesn't matter. It's a tournament.
Yep.
Like what you'll remember is that team connection and what happens in that back room, what happens warming up, what happens there, but not actually wrestling. I couldn't tell you what happened in my state finals match. Couldn't tell you. I don't remember a lick of it.
Yeah.
But I do remember afterwards, I do remember beforehand. I don't remember any of my matches at all. I my semifinal match don't remember.
Yeah. It's amazing. I there's bits and pieces of matches throughout my career that I can tell you what happened. Um, but I remember the around it
Mhm.
more so than the fun that we had. Even in college, I went to three national tournaments in college, and the sad thing is, two of them were in Butte, Montana, because it was NAIA, and we had to travel out to Butte, and it was in vans. But I remember the van rides out because we took 10 passenger vans, and had it was the ride out and ride back was fun. The being at the tournament was fun. I don't know, the matches were there. I don't they
Yeah.
didn't matter. So that's some of the things that, but you don't know that at the time when you're in it.
Yeah.
So that's another perspective when I talk to the girls that have been in the tournament and then come, or afterwards, and I say, well, what would you tell the girls now? And it's not that deep. It's
Yeah.
it's just wrestling. So
Yeah. The wrestling part doesn't matter. It's
no.
everything around it.
Yeah, that's important perspective, and I think that's where old guys maybe help out help out the coaching world, is because we know that it doesn't really matter. No one's going to remember anyway. No one remembers any one of my matches. I can tell
Mhm.
you a couple of them, but that's it. No one cares.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for answering all my questions, especially because I hope this gets me a really good grade.
Well, I hope it does too. Yeah, no, I appreciate you doing this. And this is going to be a great interview. I think it's been fun to go through this back and forth about
Mhm.
things and stuff. So I usually have to ask the questions, and I get it. I got to
Yeah.
ask them this time. So that was awesome.
Yeah.
So just so we can catch up with everything you're doing,
Yep.
you're going to school in Montana, and you're at Montana State. Is that right?
Correct.
What are you going for?
I'm doing rangeland ecology and management, and then I'm getting a minor in entomology.
So that sounds like something that I would have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, basically taking care of public lands, and then my minor is going to be in bugs. So,
Oh, very good. I know a bug person in Iowa that maybe I should hook you up with too. So from Iowa State. And then you're out there. What are some of the fun things you're doing? Because I,
oh,
I see your Instagram all the time. So what's Montana like?
Montana is amazing. I love it out here. If you talk to my dad, you will hear him say it is the most amazing place on earth, and he wishes he could live out here. Um, so what I basically do out here is I go to class, and then in the wintertime, we go snowboarding, skiing, snowshoeing. Um, when it's nicer out, rock climbing, bike riding, kind of just like any outdoor activities. The campus also has a lot of unique, fun things to do. Like last night, I went to the Battle of the Bands, which four different bands played, and one of them was basically a 90s cover band, which was amazing. And
There you
then
go.
another one was a punk band, punk rock. I was in a mosh pit. Okay, that was fun.
There you go. See, there you go.
Yeah.
That started back in my days, you know.
Hey, there were some old guys there throwing it in the mosh pit. Okay.
See, there
They
you
were
go. We can
yeah,
still
they
throw
were
it in a mosh pit.
yeah.
Do you have your horse out there?
I do. He's out here with me, so yeah.
Like I said, I see the pictures and it's like, wow, you really are enjoying where you're at and doing what you're
Oh,
doing. So I love your perspective. Loved your team. You're the Cedar. I always feel like the Cedar Falls team was like my other team, you know. And not that I know everybody, but I really do. I really do enjoy hanging out with you guys. That's part of my problem is coaching and why I need to. Um, I'm getting close to the end of my coaching career, but not out of wrestling. I'll put it that way,
mhm,
um, because I can take as much joy out of watching your wins and Lauren's wins and
mhm,
all these other people and even sometimes it's people I just met or don't even know. I can take as much joy in their wins as the wins of my team. So I feel
mhm,
like sometimes I've lost my competitive advantage as a coach because I care so much about so many different um, I want to see other people do so well. You know,
mhm,
so I don't know. I've talked to a couple different people about changing roles and coaching coaches and things like that and how
mhm,
that would look and how that could be done. But and that's why I do the podcast too, because I like
mhm,
talking to people and getting to know people. And some of my favorite ones are ones that I've never met, and then all of a sudden I got this new friend after the end after a 20-minute, 30-minute
mhm.
conversation. So no, thank you much. I'm going to use this for sure. So hopefully your project gets me some good views.
Yep. Yeah, it was a nice perspective seeing the host of the podcast and hearing what
Yeah,
you have to say, and as someone who's been in the wrestling community for a long time, being able to hear and see what you've seen over the years. I mean, a lot of the people you've interviewed, I mean, a lot of them are the younger generation and
yep,
who either were the start of women's wrestling or were in it after it got sanctioned or right as it got sanctioned, and kind of just seeing the change over the years and kind of seeing it from your perspective of how you saw all of it change, and as a coach how you see coaching girls wrestling, and um, kind of learning about the culture, other coaches, other teams, and kind of making your own little ideas of what women's wrestling is to you.
yeah.
So
And one thing I'll leave you, and you might be able to use it in the paper, is some of the things that, and when we talked about moments, some of the things that mean the most to me is like when I get to talk to you again, it means a
mhm,
lot. But like when I see you later on down the road, or and when I see like you've met Shay through the years too, I think at some
mhm,
point in time. Shay doesn't make a move without calling me and asking me my advice on that. These are people that I coached 10 years ago, and I
mhm,
still get phone calls from them or I'll see them at a meet and we talk about things like when I talked to Alana and I had a 45-minute conversation the other day about when I called her to actually ask her a question about this interview,
mhm.
and we had a 45-minute conversation about all kinds of different things. So those are what means the most to me anymore. So I appreciate you, appreciate what you're doing too, and I'm waiting to see Montana State's team become the college club national champions on the women's. Do they have a separate women's side yet?
They don't.
Well, you're gonna have to
We're a
fix.
very small team, but we
Well,
have our fun.
did you get to go to a national tournament? Did you get to go? Do you guys
No.
go?
Yep, we do go. I didn't go, I had work. Uh, but I have competed in two tournaments. One was freestyle, one was folk style. I got second place at my folk style one, and I went 0 and 2 at the freestyle one because I wrestled very good girls.
And they knew what they were doing, and you hadn't wrestled much freestyle, had you?
Yeah, I'd actually say I'm better at freestyle than folk style, but these girls were really good. Like, they came down from Canada. One was the Canada Pan Am uh
Oh well,
U23 silver medalist.
yeah, yeah, she's all
Wrestled
right,
her on the
but she's
backside.
She's wrestled a match or two.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
very cool. That's a memory you'll have forever. I wrestled this girl. Since we're talking, I wrestled a guy from it would have been Kearney State at the time, which is UNK now. He was from Iran. He had come over from Iran to be with his wife, and he had been the Iranian national champion. And I wrestled him my freshman year of college, and I got thrown so high but I landed so softly, and I got pinned so quickly. I stood up and I was like, that was awesome. I actually shook it. It's like, that was great.
Yep.
So oh, that's one of my college matches I remember. It was
Yep.
getting thrown like so high. My feet were way over my head.
Yep. First match, I had the Africa senior champion.
There you go. So
Entire continent.
you've wrestled a couple
Yeah.
okay wrestlers.
Yeah. Yep.
So, well, it's all right. That's experience.
It was experience, and I have to say it was fun. So
So are they friends of yours now? You
no.
didn't get Instagrams?
I didn't. They're like 24.
Well, that's all right. You're going to be there soon. You're going to be an old lady.
I know.
Well, thank you much.
Yes, thank you, Troy.
We definitely have to have a report on what grade you receive on the paper.
We'll do.
If it's
We'll do.
bad, if it's an F, you can always draw the other line and make it into an A. So and it'll just be because of your subject matter. I'm sure you're way smarter than I ever was. So,
Yeah,
but
we should be all good to go. I'm just gonna have to edit everything for um
perfect.
it's supposed to be 5 to 7 minutes. Currently my recording is at an hour and a half.
Well, yeah. Well, that's so old guys ramble, right?
Yep.
All right, I'll hit stop record so you have less to edit.
Okay.